This is a Bona Bana presentation showing how media reported on children in 2017. In 6 months, 11,355 stories were published in mainstream media. Of these, only 10% were about children. Yet we know children make up 35% of our population.
Of those 10% of stories, children's voices were heard in only 8% of stories that were actually about them. This is disappointing.
It is important for journalists to protect children's rights to dignity, privacy, and freedom of speech. Only 4% of stories violated these rights.
In 83% of the stories, children were portrayed in the following 5 roles. First, children as members of families at 43%. Second, children as victims at 22%. Third, children as learners at 14%. Fourth, children as suspects at 2%. And fifth, children as survivors at 2%. This shows that media have a narrow view of children. Their diversities and capacities are not fairly reflected in the news. There was more coverage of girls at 57% than of boys at 43%. It is interesting to note that coverage of adults is normally dominated by men at 78% and women at 22%.
KwaZulu-Natal has the highest number of children in South Africa. 22% of children live in this province. This was not reflected in the media, as KwaZulu-Natal's children were underrepresented in the media at only 12% of stories. Gauteng, which hosts 20% of children in South Africa, received 38% of coverage. Worse even, Western Cape, with only 10% of South Africa's child population, received a relatively high media coverage of 33%.
When we look at stories about children, we see that crime received the highest coverage at 18%, followed by justice system and education at 14% each. Teenage pregnancy and development in general were among the least covered topics. News coverage relating to children is dominated by event-based reporting. In-depth and contextualized stories were not common. Media should dig deeper and report widely so that those who are able to take action can do so from an informed point of view. Bona Bana is a Media Monitoring Africa initiative.